Hi, everyone. This is Jason, and welcome back to the channel. Joining me today is Michelle Ray. She's Director of Merchant Operations at Permission.io. She's on the board of directors of the Maliberty Initiative. She's the co-founder and director of Strategic Alliances at ClearVoter. Michelle, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I like when people read my resume out loud. It makes me sound super productive.
Well, the more I do this, the more I learn research, and it's good to know a person's background in depth so that you're not just talking about one thing.
Right. No, I agree. People are so much more than their online presence presents them to be most of the time.
Exactly. I agree 100%. So let's talk about how you first got into cryptocurrency. What was it that attracted you to Bitcoin and the whole cryptocurrency space?
Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting and I think kind of a unique story. My father was the one who introduced me to Bitcoin. I was, from a very young age, I was very interested in finance and monetary theory and economics. I had a brief stint where I wanted to be a stockbroker when I grew up. I still haven't grown up, and so that may still be a possibility at some point in my future. Um, and so, those kinds of discussions, and it's an interest of my father's as well. Those kind of discussions were relatively common around my household. I was familiar with e-gold. I was familiar with the Liberty Dollar scandal. And one Christmas, my father just sent me a private message and said, "Hey, check out this Bitcoin thing." And he sent me a link to the white paper, and as most of us in the space know, the white paper is 9 pages. The first page of which is the most important part from an ideology standpoint. And I was hooked from the moment I finished the paper. I mean, the math, the cryptography is way above my head from a technical perspective, but from an ideology perspective, from a change the planet perspective, my jaw just hit the floor. I was a true believer from the first time I read the Bitcoin white paper. So I spent a little bit of time researching Bitcoin, which at the time, now this was late 2012, there wasn't a whole lot of information online. A few articles here and there, but nothing that really got into the meat of the how and why. So I found my way onto message boards and downloaded the original Bitcoin wallet, learned a little bit about mining, sat through the agony of syncing the entire blockchain, which took 2 days, convinced somebody to tell me how to actually buy Bitcoin. So I bought a little bit back then, and the rest, as they say, is history, some ups, some downs, but I remained a true believer through it all.
Yeah, and the ups and downs are primarily the real proving ground for being involved in the space, I like to think.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, complete brutal honesty. I had an account on Mount Gox, and I also had an account on Cryptsy. Um, and if and I was a very relatively early adopter outside of the developer space, and so for me, if I had still access to the funds that were in those accounts, you and I would be talking from some mountain resort, which I had retired, sometime last year when Bitcoin hit about 20,000. So yeah, no, I mean, I think in this space, you have to be a believer in the ideology to stick through, not just the actual monetary ups and downs, but there's a lot of opposition to the ideology behind Bitcoin across the spectrum, not just the individual sovereignty perspective, but the institutional perspective, the governance and legislative perspective. There's a lot of opposition here. So taking a stand on the crypto and Bitcoin front requires a bit of fortitude, I think.
And I find it interesting that your father is the one that got you into Bitcoin, because for most of us, it's the other way around. We find this thing and then we go run into our parents. Hey, look at this.
Yeah, check this out. Yeah, no. And I had a conversation on another podcast a couple of weeks ago about this. this, I'm 46. I'm a mom of four. For me to be involved in Bitcoin or to be involved in cryptocurrency, not just from an ideological standpoint and a believer standpoint, but from a professional standpoint, is really, really, especially when I officially started working in crypto in 2014, um, is really a unique story, and I think it gives me a position to talk about things outside of the whole innovator, early adopter, developer, mindset. I've seen financial recessions and depressions. I lived through 2008, not just lived through it, but I was working, had a job, had kids to provide for, had, a mortgage to pay. And so, along with my background in interest in finance and economics, being able to live through those things from a negative standpoint, but also being able to see technology like the internet, living through technology like the internet and cell phones literally change the entire planet and the behavior of everyone on it, I think gives me a unique perspective to be able to go out there and evangelize the possibilities and the struggles that come with something like trying to take on the entire monetary system of the planet.
Well, and it's interesting when you bring up the 2008, because that's why Bitcoin was created to begin with.
Right,
You
right,
know,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, like I said, the first page of the white paper tells you all about the whys.
right, and that the message embedded in the Genesis block
Right.
gives you the why. Um, so when you first got into well, let me rephrase that. When you first started to become a developer in the space, was Permission your first project, or was there's other, or were there others before that that led to it?
Oh my goodness, no. I'm gonna drop a little name here, a little OG in the space. My first gig in this space was courtesy of Paul Pui, the co-founder and CEO of Edge Wallet, which at the time was Airbitz. He contacted me via DM on Twitter one day and said, "Hey, this is in 2014 when Airbitz was getting ready to start doing its first big public push. Said, hey, look, I follow you on Twitter. I see you're interested in this Bitcoin thing. How would you like to work um, in this space? Help me do a little promotion of a Bitcoin wallet." And he sent me the SDK, downloaded Airbits at the time, was enamored with the ease of use and the fact that Airbits very intentionally focuses on privacy, security, and ease of use and does a phenomenal job doing it. And so I have not only been a Edge Wallet user from the beginning and an evangelist from the beginning, but Paul was my professional intro. And then, of course, Clearvoter is a project that is very not publicly been in the works for several years now, with the ultimate ability to allow blockchain consensus around local political issues, not necessarily voting. I mean, voting is obviously the ultimate goal, but we're still very early in testing and things like that. But being able to record consensus data around local political issues and make that data available, imagine a proof of stake for your community. You participate in the legislative process, and you gain credibility as a political thought leader in your community, educating others around issues. And that's the idea around Clearvoter is having people actually be involved in the space locally and controlling their local governance. And so that was a big deal for me. Moving to Permission, though, was interesting because I worked in politics for a decade. Um, I was a journalist and senior political editor for a very popular um, political news site. And like everyone else who's in the political arena for very long, I got burned out and realized that what I got into it for wasn't happening. I stumbled upon a job listing on Craigslist of all places for social media for which was at the time Algebraics Data. Went in to discuss with them their idea. This was in 2017. And before I walked out of the door, instead of a part-time media gig, I had a full-time communication director gig because I absolutely fell in love with the project they had planned and the team they had put together to make it happen.
Nice. Can let's backtrack a little bit to Clearvoter, because what you bring up about the proof of stake is I think an important issue that um, there's been talk about using a blockchain for voting.
Right.
And what do you think is the main reason why that is stalling? Why that's not? It doesn't look like that's going to be uh,
Right.
feasible.
So I think there are three primary reasons why blockchain voting faces stiff opposition here in the United States. I mean, just for clarity's sake, the country of Estonia uses blockchain for everything, including voting. And so, there is a proven use case out there, albeit on a much smaller scale than voting at a national level in the United States would be, but certainly not at local and state levels. So, the main reasons that I think blockchain faces such opposition here is one, that it is permissionless, and the United States government, state governments, local governments, county governments, even city governments really don't like governance to be influenced by things outside of their control. Even when they go into private partnerships, they're the ones that write the rules. They're the ones that set the boundaries around the private participation in whatever things like green initiatives in a city or smart planning, smart city planning. It's still done by the governance rules. Um, Another reason, obviously, is just a lack of education, not around any particular protocol like proof of stake or proof of authority or whatever. It's really around how something like voting could be kept secure uh, while still being distributed, while the systems that run the infrastructure are distributed. You and I both know that voting can be secure by giving users private keys that are only applicable to them. They have to sign them by KYC in the same way you sign up for an investment account somewhere. And that would secure identity tied to one vote, a private key that's only usable once. The first time you use it, that's it. It can never be counted again. I mean, you and I both know technically this is very easy to do and very possible. Um, and I think the third piece is right now politics in this country at every level of governance are so polarized that the accusations about influencing technology would fly just like they do around voting machines right now. People are, interestingly, in a company that likes to bill itself as technologically advanced. The US is really technologically so far behind so much of the rest of the world in adopting and testing out technology that we're almost archaic. You mentioned paper ballots, which is a great backup to a system, but if neither system is functioning, it's time to move on. And explore and experiment. And I know there was a project in, I think it was Vermont, that got very little fanfare and was dismissed as not being effective. In all honesty, I haven't been able to find much data around why the project was summarily dismissed as being viable. My guess is that it's one of those, or accumulation of those three reasons that I mentioned before. So I think it will happen starting as Clearvoter has been kept in mind all these years, at a very local start, with the people adopting it first and evangelizing it as a communication tool, as a way to track interest and perception and public policy positions, and they will drag their council people kicking and screaming into it.
And just for the sake of plugging Clearvoter, I'd rather Clearvoter be in charge of that than Facebook.
Yeah, I think Clearvoter, I think the board and the management team at Clearvoter agree.
So let's talk social media, since we just brought up Facebook. Um, more and more of us in the cryptocurrency space are moving away from traditional social media platforms. We're going to more decentralized platforms like minds.com. We're going to like for streamers, there's D Live and different platforms like
Yeah,
that.
BitTube, DLive, Mastodon, right, right.
Right, exactly. So is it I mean, the problem though that I have with our move to those platforms is that the people who we're trying to reach aren't going to, right? So we tend to be in an echo chamber, right? Where we're talking to people of like mind, but we're not talking to the general public because they haven't discovered these other websites. They don't know that they have options. Um, do you think that it's a matter of advertisement, of exposure? Why do you think we're having such a slow turn getting people off of these social media platforms?
Well, so social media is an incredible phenomenon. I'm obviously a huge fan of the idea behind social media. I'm an avid user. I was an early adopter of it as well. And I look at things a little bit differently for you than you do in this particular instance. All of these other social media platforms, I've been on mine since 2015, an early believer in the anti-Facebook. And but Minds is not ready to take on Facebook. Minds, from a development standpoint, I mean, forget the crypto piece of Minds because it's really irrelevant. You don't even need to participate in the crypto economy to to use Minds, right? It doesn't matter. But Minds, from a development standpoint, needs people like you and I, the early adopters, to go in and tell them what's wrong with their platform to use it. And I think it's okay, for 2, 4, maybe even 5, 7 years for platforms like Minds and Mastodon to go have these echo chambers of people who are early adopters and willing to try out something new and make the determination about whether this platform is in it for the long run and willing to, develop in a way that's going to solve the problems that current social media platforms do, or they're not. I regularly recommend Minds to people because I think the teams at Minds are very, very dedicated to their mission of not necessarily competing with Facebook, but providing a viable, friendly, comfortable, familiar alternative. Um, of all of the Twitter-like uh, media, social media competitors, I've tried both centralized and decentralized. I haven't found one yet that I think is dedicated to that mission. Mastodon is a great thing, but unless you're my age and understood IRC and BBS at the time, you won't understand connecting to a server for Mastodon. It's just not a familiar, comfortable, easy experience for people who log on to Twitter or Facebook. So I am actually okay with hundreds of decentralized social media projects trying to be the one and competing with each other and it being an echo chamber on all of them for a while. Now, when it comes to, like I said, I evangelize minds.com, but I don't preach minds.com. For me, Minds, like anything else, word of mouth is the best way to grow the value of a brand. I have friends that have been following me on social media for a long time. I consider myself a reliable source of vetted information. I think they continue to follow me for that reason. And when I push anything out there, endorse anything, suggest anything, it's because I personally have vetted it. So that's why I think it's okay that there isn't a Facebook killer or a Twitter killer out there run by our community at this time. I'm kind of okay with this. Now ask me the same question in 2023.
well, after our next election, we'll see just how bad it's going to get. Well, and the going along the same lines of Facebook and Twitter. So with Facebook and I think the main complaint that a lot of people had or have about Facebook is the privacy issue that we all know about now.
Right.
But as far as reach, we like it's not, we're not ready to abandon Facebook because there's so many people still on Facebook. Like my mother's on Facebook.
Right. Mine as well.
Right. If I tell her, okay, come over to Minds, she'll be like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. No, mine is exactly the same way.
And
Yeah.
but then why I brought up the election was because a lot of the view on these platforms that are emerging, they get run through the ringer of the media. And most of these platforms are basically free speech platforms, right? No one's gonna kick you off if you say something someone doesn't like.
Right.
But because of our politically charged society that we're currently in, if you don't kick people off for saying things that someone might find offensive, now we're going to label you as this kind of person or that kind of person.
Right.
So is it well, we already covered it, so we don't have to go back into it, but it's also a PR situation too.
Hugely. I would say primarily a PR situation for platforms like Facebook and Twitter.
Right. Yeah.
So, to your point, I left Facebook in 2018, at the end of 2018. So Cambridge Analytica was a bridge too far. I am a privacy advocate, have been for 2 decades. I knew, I also worked on the other end of Facebook promoting brands and doing social media for companies. So I knew just how much information I could get about people if I wanted to push my product or my brand or my idea onto them. I already knew this. And it is a very difficult place to be in if you are a brand, whether you're a brand like you and I are, or you're, Bitcoin, or your, Sears, or your Taco Bell. It is a difficult position to be in to ethically choose to not exploit the very consumers and people you were trying to reach, but also wanting to gain as wide of reach as possible. Social media brand evangelism is also a dog eat dog world. And it is a personal decision and a brand decision to employ tactics that make you better rather than juxtapose you against your competition. Um, it is so much easier to declare an enemy and talk about how bad they are than it is to convince people how good you are. And Facebook and Twitter are platforms that thrive on that juxtaposition of good versus evil type of conversation. They thrive on that. Mr. Nice Guy doesn't get the attention, and as a perfect example, I was on Twitter probably in 2009 as a brand, a political brand, trying to make myself a thought leader in a certain political space, and tried a few tactics here and there. I mean, Twitter was very tactical for me. And after about a year of being on there, I realized that my tactic was uncomfortable for me. Being confrontational was not what I wanted to be seen as, not the person I wanted to be, not the brand I wanted to invent for myself. But it is a lot harder to engage, especially today versus 2010 or 2009. It is a lot more difficult to engage people in rational, reasonable debate that ends in agreeing to disagree, or not blocking each other, or not trying to get each other thrown off a platform, than it is to just create this outrageous, loud, obnoxious persona and get, create this cult following around your persona. And that benefits Twitter and Facebook, despite all of their conversations about wanting to make the platform safer and more respectful. They don't, because that lowers the conversation roar on their platforms. It makes them less appealing. If I need to find a tribe, I want my tribe to be loud, and I want I want to blend in with this really loud vocal tribe that thinks they're making a difference.
Right.
If I'm on there trying to have conversations with people who disagree with me in a way that makes us not hate each other, well, I'm boring, and that's not good for social media.
Right. And I mean, well, that's one reason why we have well, when when Jack Dorsey and I forget her name, she went on they went on the Joe Rogan podcast with Tim Pool.
Yep.
And a part of it seemed like Jack was just clueless about what his platform actually does. And it brings me to my question about what happened to you and your original Twitter handle. So your original Twitter handle was Galt's Girl.
Correct.
And
for almost 10 years.
For almost 10 years. You had over 25,000 followers.
Over 50,000.
Over 50,000, see?
Yeah.
So with a presence that big, you would think that Twitter would be more reticent to help you. Um, well, let me give some background for the viewers. So what happened to Michelle's account was Michelle's account was hijacked by nefarious actors, and she was locked out of it. So she wasn't able to get back into her handle, and she had an account, 50,000 followers, that should have drawn attention of Twitter and Twitter support to we need to help this person get back online. She since had to create a new handle, Ragnar's Mate, and the few of us who knew her already, we were able to look her up by her name and find out what her new Twitter handle was, when we should have been able to just go back to her original God's Girl Twitter handle. So, Michelle, for what's been your experience with trying to get control back of your original handle? Because Jack had the same thing happen to him, and it got resolved in a few hours. What was your experience?
Right. So literally the exact same thing happened to me that happened to Jack. I was the victim of a SIM swap. The person who got a hold of my phone, had my phone number ported to their phone, changed my Twitter password. Once they did that, they changed the email and phone number associated with it, completely locking me out. But not only was I a prominent Twitter user, and I mean prominent, I had over 700,000 tweets on my account. Um, and a polite Twitter user for the most part. I mean, I'm not a troll. I didn't engage trolls generally. I was verified. So while I was working in politics, Twitter actually verified my account. They had a copy of my photo ID. They had employment information. So, I was a blue check mark. I immediately knew what was happening the minute the hack happened. I mean, within 10 minutes, I actually briefly regained control of my account. But there is this interesting flaw in Twitter that if you have a open mobile session of Twitter, you can go into settings and end all other sessions. So the person still had their Twitter opened in my account on their phone. Even though I got control back, they ended all sessions, which cut me off. So within probably 15 minutes of the attack and knowing I wasn't going to get my account back, I emailed Twitter support. I filled out their, actually didn't email, I filled out their online support form. The next morning, I got an email back saying that they couldn't verify that I was the owner of the account. And that, I was like, okay, I'll respond to this email a little bit more and point out that this was a verified account. And in order to verify that I was the owner of the account, they just had to verify the information they already verified. Again, an automated response with, we're sorry, we can't help you. We know this is disappointing, but we can't verify that you're the owner of the account. Now, my emails to Twitter, my support tickets were coming from the email that was associated with the account for almost a decade. I was able to provide information. I attached a copy of my photo ID. And now here, this happened the end of April. Now this is late September. To date, I have filed more than 40 support tickets, gotten nearly 1,000 retweets of my requests for help. I have emailed more than 10 people at departments directly at Twitter, and I have had exactly 0 response from anyone at Twitter about getting my access to my account, which is, wouldn't be disturbing. It's not the 50,000 followers or anything like that. It's that because I work in marketing and media, that's my resume. That's my CV. And on top of that, there are private conversations I've had with businesses and people. There are pictures of my children that someone else, yes, I could go download them. That's not the issue. Someone else is now in control of those tweets and controls the image of me that has been out there for 10 years. They decide what tweets they want to show and which ones they don't. And Jack, for somebody who says that they want to make their platform more safe, more I don't know, reliable for users and comfortable and a safe place to be, they've made 0 effort to help a long time, relatively courteous, I'm not even all that controversial, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm a libertarian, so I dish it on both sides, and I always have.
Well, Well, apart my opinion, and you don't have to chime in on this one if you don't want to, but my opinion is it's somewhat politically motivated
I
because
can't disagree at this point. I can't think of another reason why they wouldn't help me at this point.
right, exactly. I mean, like you said, you're libertarian and you dish it out on both sides. Um, but for them to respond, well, in lack of response that they have shown, where other people with the same issue get much faster responses, much faster help. You don't have to, like, I've retweeted your support request,
Requests, right?
right?
Right. No, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it just seems to me like that they shouldn't want this many tweets floating around that say you're not helping this person.
You're not even trying to help, right? No, I've witnessed the same thing. I watched Velveeta King get her account back. Jack, obviously, I think there was a football player not that long ago who suffered a SIM swap. I mean, listen, if you're vocal on Twitter about any particular topic that's either going to upset somebody or, especially in the crypto space, make you a financial target, you're at risk for being a target of a SIM swap attack. People took over my Twitter account not because I was politically, dangerous or opposition. I was a financial target because I talk about crypto. And what an idiot. I spent half my time talking about not keeping money on an exchange. And the first thing they did was try to hack my exchange account like there was going to be money there. I'm like, what a dumbass, you know? And, but, the fascinating thing for me is that Jack is now the victim of this. He realizes how easy it is for someone to be a target. And I would think Twitter, after that experience, would be all over helping its more vocal proponents and users who have been victims, being there for them. I mean, look, 50,000 followers is not 7 million, but I have been a vocal proponent of Twitter for influencing everything for years. Everything from early adoption of technology to criminal justice reform to getting involved locally politically to, being a kinder, gentler people to one another. How is any of that bad for Twitter for them to take 5 minutes and look at my photo ID and reset the access to this account? I literally cannot disagree with you that at this point it's got to be political. There's no other reason.
Well, more than likely you have some intern. Oh, golf. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
can't have that.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I read Atlas Shrugged and couldn't get through it. She's awful, right?
Everyone read Atlas Shrugged.
Read it if you hate it. Let's talk about it. Find me on Twitter. Let's have a debate about it like adults. I have a no meme zone unless they're used ironically. I have a no meme zone.
Yeah, well, like I said in my, I like to use memes because they convey emotion a lot better than a person might be able to on social media.
Yeah, no, they're very handy when you're trying to be sarcastic.
Right, exactly. And
yeah, but informationally, I actually just had a long conversation about memes as information. Like, it's so impossible, especially for people who grew up on social media, to be able to filter their bias and actually fact check a meme. They just don't. But if they have to respond to you with their big boy words or their big girl words, they have to formulate a basis around their argument and be able to defend it. And so for memes, I typically use them for people who I find to be incapable of formulating an argument.
well, and also 240 characters is not exactly the medium you want to be using to form a complete argument.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And no matter how succinct you get, which, I got very, very good at interpreting policy issues into succinctness, no matter how good you get, the divisiveness right now means if you choose the wrong word or you don't choose the right word, your argument becomes null and void because no one listens to anything else you're saying, which is another reason that I'm finding the current political platforms to be useless in a lot of things I originally joined them to accomplish.
Right. And the sad part about it is, and like we said earlier, this climate has infected every level of our lives. It's not I can't have a conversation with someone on Twitter about politics. That's why I don't talk about politics on my Twitter account. I see all these things in my feed, but I don't respond to them because I'm not trying to cause a bigger issue. Jason agrees with this, Jason agrees with
Right,
that. We have to
right.
get him kicked off of Twitter.
Right, brand. Yeah, no, it's damage control for your brand, especially if you're trying to evangelize something like cryptocurrency or Bitcoin that you care very much about. I am a full-fledged card-carrying member of the Type and Delete Brigade myself. Um, I want to respond. I've been in politics for 2 decades, an activist, an evangelist, a journalist, an editor, a policy analyst. I want to respond. I want to clarify, but I have to remind myself that nobody wants clarity anymore. They even people I quote unquote would put on my side of policy issues. They've abandoned the idea of educating people on social media, and they rightly should because it's no longer the venue for that. And so my clarifying input, my non-sarcastic, non-tribe driven input is irrelevant on social. And it does damage to my brand. Now sometimes I just can't resist myself. Like when Bernie tweets, man, I just can't help myself. I just can't stop myself from responding to the old man shouting at the sky about magic money. I just can't do it. But otherwise, I spend a lot of time typing and deleting myself and not wanting to damage the community I'm trying to build around the positivity that can bolster confidence in cryptocurrency and blockchain solutions to some problems right now.
Right, right. And in spirit of that, let's go back to permission
Yeah,
and
let's do that.
let's talk about the project there. So, permission.io was originally a website where you could click on an ad and watch a video, and then you would receive ASK tokens.
Right.
Um, Recently, I noticed a shift towards a marketplace format. Was
Correct.
there a reason why you went from the ads to the marketplace?
Sure, absolutely. Online advertising is an $80 billion a year business. It was a great place for us to start the testing of the idea that Facebook is a waste of brand or business's money. You're spending all of this massive amounts of money to reach people based on abusing their personal data, and they're not really converting for you. So the original idea of permission at the time, which wasn't permission then, but that was always the idea behind our company, is building relationships between people who want to sell or share information and people who may want to consume it, should be based on permission. Um, was that why spend that money on Facebook or promoting things on Twitter or on Google Ads when you could reward your consumer directly? What we discovered, and what we kind of knew very early on, is that people who are interested in cryptocurrency are interested in accumulating coins or tokens that may or may not one day appreciate in value. They were not engaging with these brands, which, by the way, some of these brands were super excited about the idea of reaching out to their potential consumers directly, rewarding them with the idea of, why pay Facebook? I'll pay my consumers. They'll become more loyal because I value them. Advertising was a great beta test for us to clarify what we want to reward, what behavior these brands want to influence, and obviously that's conversions, um, and how we could best create an ecosystem that right now doesn't exist. So the idea of airdropping and tokenizing your attention and data is new, not new. There's a whole ecosystem in advertising and marketing around this idea. What is new, what doesn't exist in the crypto space, and what I became super passionate and what Permission has become super passionate about, is created a crypto use case that is easy and completes the entire cycle of being able to get cryptocurrency without having to understand KYC or exchanges or put money out there, have a safe place that respects you to store that cryptocurrency, and then having something to do with that cryptocurrency on the exact same platform. There are some really amazing projects out there that are introducing people to crypto and making onboarding, making an on-ramp for crypto very easy, but none of them puts all of this into one place. This earning crypto, this holding and storing crypto, and the ability to spend it, along with the ideology that you as a consumer are valuable, monetarily valuable to brands, any kind of brand. Podcasters are a brand, Taco Bell is a brand. Content is becoming, the way we tell stories has changed. The way we reach consumers has changed so dramatically. But the way we do business on the internet hasn't changed in 25 years. It's just gotten louder and more intrusive. So we want to make it comfortable and familiar. The permission marketplace is a very familiar feeling experience. Go to a shop, search for something you want to buy, click on it and buy it. There's nothing unique about the experience itself. It's the relationship between you and the brand. It's the value of you to the brand, saying you came, you searched, you bought. I'm going to reward you directly instead of paying Facebook to reach you, so you'll come back. And we think that's the way not just e-commerce, but any online relationship should be. One day you might want to reach candidates about a job, and if they're highly prized, sought after candidates, perhaps you want to pay them, to have access to their resumes. Perhaps you as a job seeker might want to pay brands to get your resume in front of them. I mean, any online relationship, any exchange of value can be monetized, and that monetization, that priority of relationships based on permission can now be tracked on the blockchain in a monetary way. We think that, the future of the internet has to be different, better, safer, more comfortable, and more worth your time. So that's what permission is all about.
Right, right. And I have to make a program note for early in our conversation where we're talking about blockchains. There are different kinds of blockchains. There are permissionless and there are permission blockchains. So it's not just one size fits all when it comes to this technology. But to your point about permission, um, I like the idea of being able to do everything through one source that does the you interact with it, you earn ask tokens, and then you can spend them on other things, and it just keeps the ecosystem in and of itself.
Right.
Um,
I think that's
the
what crypto's missing right now, is a
right,
single
yeah,
platform, a single on-ramp for people who are interested in crypto, but are afraid to spend money, to sink money into it, don't want to go through KYC, AML. I think we appeal across the board to crypto newbies, crypto interested, and crypto familiar who look as a evangelist, and I am an evangelist for crypto. Um, what I want is something that makes crypto appeal outside of ICO token hunters, outside of developers. I want crypto to appeal to my mother, and I want it to be as easy as her using Amazon.
right, right. And that's a great point, because if we never get it past the point of ICOs and holding and going to the moon, it's just going to stay in its own little bubble. It
Right.
needs to be in a way where the general public can use it. And it's similar to, well, like you were talking about with mines. You don't need to be involved in their cryptocurrency aspect to use the platform.
Correct. And you
No,
don't with our platform either. You could
right,
care less about ASK. You
exactly.
could come search for things to shop, and we'll never track you. We'll never share what you shopped for with any vendor, and they'll never contact you outside. You don't even need an account to use permission.io. Obviously you won't earn ASK, you don't get the wallet, but you can shop and buy on permission without ever creating an account.
And that's what I think the the best part about it is, that where you don't even, unless you look into it, you don't even know that this is a crypto related product.
Right.
It's a marketplace. You want to it's like a more private version of eBay.
Right. Absolutely. Right. Like we are, our goal is to show the world that the internet should be better. It should be better. There was a famous billboard stuck outside of Google by a blockchain project, crossing out the "don't be evil" and making it "can't be evil." Well, that is true, especially of companies that commit to making the internet a place that is valuable on an individual personalized basis. Again, look, I'm an Amazon shopper. I was an Amazon early adopter. I jumped on Prime. I hate shopping in, public stores, brick and mortar stores now. Amazon to me was this incredible innovation and revelation and revolution really of e-commerce. But despite going on Amazon almost every day and adding things to my wish list or my cart that I know I'm going to want or need later, Amazon's user experience is horrific right now. Horrible. You might as well be walking through Times Square. You are blasted with promoted products. You are given so many options thrown at you that you become distracted from the thing you went there. Amazon is now a time killer, a time suck, and not a convenience tool for me anymore. I want to fix that. I mean, I just want to fix that for everybody.
Well, and you're right. I mean, you could spend hours on Amazon just going down the rabbit hole of whatever product you're looking for.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, their UX is terrible now.
yeah. Well, I think they're trying to be everything for everybody, right?
Right. Well, they've moved into advertising now, right? So on top of that, their move into advertising is really destroying the small business sellers on Amazon. They don't have the money to compete with the promoted products that the larger brands and Amazon with its Amazon Basics brand does.
Right.
Right? Amazon is not an agnostic platform. They want money, and I get it. Brands they want money. That's what they exist for. But Amazon as a platform is not agnostic, and permission very, very much is. If you want to reach consumers ahead and above another brand for a product line, then you need to pay that consumer,
Right. Exactly.
not our platform.
Right. Exactly. All right. So we're going to leave it there. And Michelle, thank you so much. This has been such a great talk for me. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
I
And
appreciate you having me. You obviously know I've been following you for a while. I think you produce great, layman level content that is going to help us onboard people and make them more comfortable with crypto. And I'm all about supporting that as much as I can.
I appreciate that. So everyone, what I would ask for you to do is if you see any of Michelle's tweets to Twitter support, please like and retweet those tweets. We need to flood them with as many um, messages of you need to help this person as possible. It's not right that she has to go through this many hoops in order to get back something that has already been verified as belonging to her. If they can't fix their technology, they need to change their technology. So do that. I'm going to link Michelle's Twitter handle that she's currently using in the description below. And I'm going to provide links to permission.io, and we're going to support Michelle and everything she does moving forward. So once again, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much.